So I think we can start. So today we'll be having our journal club. Uh, with me today will be Dr. Ramdeep Rai, who is Chief of Gastroenterology and Hepatopancreal Division at Apollo Clinic Hospital, one of our ex-alumni of IPGMR and Calcutta Medical College. He is actively doing all hepatobiliary, including liver transplant surgery in Calcutta. So today we have chosen two hepatobiliary topic for discussion. Please, to start with, Alok, you will start.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first topic will be by Dr. Milind Alomji.
So may I start?
Yes.
Good morning, respected teachers. I am Dr. Milind Alokji, first year DNB PGT, Department of General Surgery at MR Bangalore Hospital. The article that I'll be discussing today for the journal club, the title is Outcomes of Laparoscopic Common Bile Duct Exploration, or LCBDE, after failed endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography versus primary LCBDE for managing cholecystolithiasis. The primary author was Hans-Baro Kim. Now, a few lines about the journal. This article was published in the Journal of the International Medical Research. The editor-in-chief are Gordon Malarkey and Matthew Thorne. It is published, the issue is published monthly, and the 2-year impact factor is 1.287. Other publications by the chief author, Hans-Baro Kim, include Laparoscopic versus Open Pancreaticoduodenectomy for Pancreatic Neuroendocrine Tumors, a single center experience, and other articles such as 100 most influential manuscripts on hepatocellular carcinoma, a bibliometric analysis. Now coming to the main article. Common bile duct stones, CBD stones, are found in approximately 5 to 20% of patients with symptomatic gallstones. The optimal management of cholecystolithiasis is still under debate. Therapeutic strategies for CBD stones include laparotomy, laparoscopic surgery, percutaneous intervention, and ERCP. Among these, preoperative ERCP and stone extraction, followed by laparoscopic cholecystectomy, are preferred treatment. This being recommended in the European Association for Study of Liver Clinical Practical Guidelines on the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of gallstones. Now, ERCP, there are some ERCP-related adverse effects, which include pancreatitis, duodenal perforation, and bleeding. And failure of ERCP to extract CBD stones may be due to failed cannulation, previous Bilrod 2 gastrectomy, large CBD stones, and a high number of CBD stones. Single-stage laparoscopic CBD exploration during laparoscopic cholecystectomy is now primarily used to treat cholecystolithiasis, although advanced surgical skills are required to perform this procedure. Now, a recent meta-analysis has showed that LCBD during LC is superior to preoperative ERCP and stone extraction followed by laparoscopic cholecystectomy. But only few case series have been performed to compare the outcome of LCBD after failed ERCP versus primary LCBD during LC for managing cholecystolithiasis. So the aim of the present study was to analyze the reasons for ERCP failure when treating CBD stones and to evaluate results of primary LCBD compared with the results of laparoscopic CBD exploration after failed ERCP for managing this condition. Now, materials and methods. This was a retrospective study. The site of the study was the Halim Sacred Heart and the Chuncheon Sacred Heart Hospital in South Korea. It was done between January 2013 to August 2019 and had a sample size of 59 patients. The inclusion criteria were patients of cholecystolithiasis who underwent laparoscopic CBD exploration and laparoscopic cholecystectomy. And the exclusion criteria were patients whose CBD stones were completely removed on a repeat ERCP procedure following a first failed ERCP. Now, the study was approved by the Institutional Review Board and consent was not required as it was a retrospective study and data was mainly collected from medical records. Now, the patients in this study, they were divided into two groups. Group 1 included those having primary laparoscopic CBD exploration and laparoscopic cholecystectomy, and 2 who had laparoscopic LCBD after failed ERCP. Now, I request you all to that this particular flowchart to start from point number 1. First of all, the diagnosis of CBD stones was made using the relevant radiological investigations such as ultrasonography and MRCP. Now, the institution where this study was held, their protocol dictated that the initial approach for CVD stone was the endoscopic management. Now, here the ERCP procedure was done, and this included endoscopic sphincterotomy, endoscopic papillary balloon dilatation, stone removal using a retrieval balloon or basket. In case of large CVD stone, mechanical lithotripsy was done, and if this failed, then it was the decision was taken whether to repeat the endoscopic procedure or perform the surgical procedure. Now, this was the one direction in which they went. The other way was that after diagnosis, if the decision was taken to if it was indicated, then primary LCBD was done without any ERCP. Now, the indications for this primary LCBD was presence of a huge stone, history of Billroth 2 surgery, and a diverticle. Now, the clinical characteristics that were analyzed included age, sex, BMI, ASA physical status, and comorbidities. Operative data that was analyzed included data such as operating time, post-op complications, start of intake, length of hospital stays, CBD parameters such as diameter, stone size, stone clearance, and data associated with ERCP failure. And the duct clearance was confirmed by intraoperative cholangiogram, post-operative T-tube cholangiography, or MRCP. The degree of difficulty in performing the ERCP is analyzed according to the following grading scale. Grade 1 was simple diagnostic ERCP, 2 was simple therapeutic ERCP, 3 complex diagnostic ERCP, 4 complex therapeutic, and 5 was very advanced ERCP in only group 2, those who had a failed ERCP. And readmission was defined as rehospitalization after 30 days of discharge. Now, 2 surgical procedures were done, and they were dependent on what the surgeon chose, and the surgical technique was not standardized. One was the transductal approach, where 4 trocars were used. The choledochotomy was done 1 to 2 centimeters vertically at the location of the anterior CBD. Normal saline was injected to flush out the stones, and then primary closure, internal stent insertion, or T-tube insertion was done as indicated. The other was the transcystic approach, where 4 trocars were used, and the endoscopic basket was passed over a guide wire through the cystic duct to extract the stone under fluoroscopic guidance. The appropriate statistical analysis was done, and this was performed using IBM SSPS statistics for Windows version 22. Now, we talk about the result. First of all, the patient characteristics. We see that there was no significant difference. Now, the total number of participants in the study was 59. 28 were in group 1 and 31 were in group 2. There was no significant difference when comparing demographic characteristics like age, sex, and BMI. The ASA physical status also did not show any significant difference, and the history of comorbidities or symptoms or operative history was also without any significance. Now, when we talk about the reasons for the failed failed endoscopic stone extraction, among the 31 patients in group 2, the maximum the incomplete CBD stone removal, there was the reason was remaining stones in the ERCP. There are 9 cases of such cases. 1, there was a huge stone, and 1 impacted stone. In case of failed cannulation, the maximum was due to abnormal position of the ampulla vator or the failed sedation. The degree of ERCP difficulty according to grading scale in group 2 was grade 2. There were 11 patients who had grade 2. Grade 4 was 19, and 1 patient had a grade 5 according to the degree of ERCP difficulty. Now, the perioperative results. The stone extraction under direct laparoscopic choledochotomy was achieved in 28 patients, that is 100% in group 1, and in 29 patients, that is 93.5% in group 2. And the transcystic approach was performed in only 2 patients in group 2. There was no difference in the surgical type between the 2 groups. Now, when we talk about the perioperative results, we see that here also, when we compare between both the groups, the operation time is nearly the same, and so is the commencement of the oral diet. The duration of the hospital stay, the difference is without any significant difference. Then further, we have that the incidence of bile leakage, there was only one patient in group 2 who had an incidence of bile leakage, and wound infection was seen in only one person in group 1, and there was no reoperation, no readmission, no mortality. Basically, in both the groups, when we compare, we see that there is no significant difference when in both the procedures, whether we do a primary LCBD and LC or we go for it after an ERC. When we talk about CVD stone clearance rate and recurrence, again we see that there is no significant difference between both the studies. Now, let us come to the discussion. Now, the first choice for CVD stone management is endoscopic treatments, and reports have indicated a high technical success rate with extraction of at least 90% of stones. Now, in this study, the most common reason for incomplete CVD stone removal was the presence of a remaining stone, followed by a huge stone. Now, the size, shape, and number of stones are the key determinants of whether extraction will be easy or not. Similar results have been seen by Kim et al., who found that a large CVD stone of size more than 15 mm, an impacted CVD stone, shorter length of the distal CVD arm, and a more acute distal CVD angle were significant factors affecting the technical difficulty of CVD stone clearance. Now, failed cannulation is another important reason why ERCP fails. The success rate of biliary cannulation is 84 to 94%. In the present study, the reason for failed cannulation included abnormal position of the ampulla of Vater, periampullary diverticula, and a previous Billroth to gastrectomy. Now, Hong et al. Reported a success rate of cannulation in case of an ectopic papilla at 83.2%. This we see is lower than the overall success rate that the authors have mentioned. Further, another study reported that a periampullary diverticulum can increase the rate of difficult or failed cannulation. Now, predicting the possibility of failure in advance is very helpful because, and for this we have multiple studies which try to assess the technical difficulty of ERCP. Multiple studies have developed a grading system. Now, the success of ERCP is influenced by the technical difficulty of the procedure. Therefore, we require a very accurate grading to predict the failure of ERCP. Now, when we talk about the whether we go for primary LCBD versus after failure of ERCP, in this study, the success rate of laparoscopic CVD stone management 98.3% with zero mortality. LCBD after failed ERCP yielded a similar mean operative time in hospital stay as primary LCBD, and there was no significant difference in the CVD stone clearance rate and stone recurrence rate between the two groups. Therefore, the author said that LCBD is safe and effective in managing cholecystocholedocholithiasis. Now, when we compare the other studies, we see that in the favor of primary LCBD, it has been said that there is shorter hospital stay and comparable stone clearance rate as compared to after ERCP failure, and some studies have found that there are superior results in terms of perioperative safety and short and long-term post-operative efficacy. After failed ERCP, it is said that LCBD becomes more challenging than primary. Mean operative time was longer because of local fibrosis around the Callots triangle, and there was a longer hospital stay and longer operative time in use of a TT. Now, the limitations of this study was that it was of retrospective nature and it studied only a small population size. Now, in conclusions, the authors noted that laparoscopic CVD exploration can be safely and effectively performed for managing cholecystic choledocholithiasis. The outcomes were similar between primary LCBD and LCBD after failed ERCP. And if endoscopic stone removal is predicted to be difficult or to fail, then primary LCBD is an acceptable alternative treatment for managing cholecystocholedocholithiasis. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Ramdeep.
Yeah. Thank you for the nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
So what is your recommendation based on this study?
Sir, this study basically showed that there is no difference whether we go for a primary laparoscopic CVD exploration or we go for after ERCP. So ERCP has been accepted as an endoscopic approach is accepted as the primary, like in the case of this institute as well, as the primary approach. But if we are predicting that the retrieval due to by the endoscopic approach from this of the CBD stone will be difficult, then we can go from a primary laparoscopic CBD exploration rather than having a failed ERCP. And because some studies have shown that
I
laparoscopic.
understand. I'm just asking what is your take-home recommendation on the basis of this?
Sir, if there is a prediction of a difficult CBD stone retrieval, then we should go for a laparoscopic CBD exploration with laparoscopic cholecystectomy instead of an ERCP.
Okay. So what is the strength of your recommendation? So my question is, what is the level of evidence that is provided by this paper?
So this is.
You already mentioned the limitations.
Yes, sir.
So basically, whenever you look at a paper or any study, we can say it is of a certain. What is the level of evidence? Do you in medical research there's something called level of evidence? Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir. So level of evidence such as the lowest level is an expert opinion, then the highest is a 2 or more randomized controlled
First
trials.
is not level expert. First is a
Sir,
systematic review of randomized control trial.
Yes, sir.
Level one.
Highest is randomized controlled trial. 2 or more randomized controlled trials. Then we have a systematic review or a meta-analysis based on multiple randomized. So like there's a series, or then we have non-randomized controlled trial. So like that. Then we have. I don't remember the exact.
Yes. So whenever you're doing a journal club, it is important to know the level of evidence, because the scientific part of it is already you have read through it. But you should be able to say what is the level of evidence. And based on the level of evidence, there is something called strength of recommendation, which may be level 1, level 2. So you have to look at both the level of evidence as well as the. So I think you should be aware of that.
Did you
So
find a publication from Dr. Om Tatia in this regard? He has a very large series of primary LCBD, and he has given a good evidence that LCBD in a expert hand is comparable to ERCP plus LabColi. Did you find that paper? Publication from Om Tatia? You should see some cross-reference article to substantiate this, because that was not, the Tatia's paper was not failed ERCP. He just proceeded with the primary surgery of LCBD with cholecystectomy plus comparing this with ERCP followed by LabColi. You did not find that paper, na? Okay. So this is now coming as an alternative. You see, ERCP, I have not mentioned about the, in a failed ERCP, there are a lot of complications also. So comparing this outcome based on the complications of primary LCBD versus ERCP followed by LabColi, then people are, the more evidence is gathered in favor of doing primary LCBD. But precondition is you have to have a good setup. You have to have a good surgeon with experience in this advanced lab procedure. Dr. Ramdeep, what do you feel? What's your recommendation?
I definitely feel that hernia laparoscopy is an advanced surgery compared to probably laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Similarly, laparoscopic CBD exploration is an advanced surgery, but probably more and more data will continue to gather as more surgeons take the initiative, and there is a definite role of going in for primary CBD exploration along with cholecystectomy at the same time. But yes, it cannot be done by everyone. We won't be able to do it, but Makunda, people who are doing it regularly should be able to do that.
So it is important to predict ERCP failure. But the point is, you find that again, ERCP expertise is also important. You find a lot of people doing ERCP in Calcutta. There are some people who are getting failed in even a small stone. But people like Mahesh Goenka and other people are doing a complex situation that they are getting success. So that is also an important part. The person who is doing ERCP, the endoscopy experience is also a factor for this stone extraction. So one has to take a good predictive scale and then decide about this procedure. What do you think, Ramdeep?
Yeah, entirely, completely agree on that. And I think as a MS or DNB student, you should also be aware on the sidelines of these papers that how do we deal with these things traditionally at open surgery? What are the options when you're faced with CBD stones at open surgery traditionally, where ERCP was not there? So those surgical options also you should be aware for your exam purposes. So
Yeah.
what would you do with CBD stones faced at surgery, open surgery?
Sir, in case of an open surgery, sir, if so, we can go for an open CBD exploration, sir.
Followed by
So for open CBD, so we can go for if we have the setup, we can go for an intraoperative cholangiogram, or we can, sir, if that is not available.
we have done open the CBD, we have taken out the stones. Now how do we deal with the CBD?
So we can put a say we can go so we can either we can so we can put in a T tube and so then go for an T tube cholangiogram after 7 to 10 days.
One is T tube. Any other options?
Uh,
Large bile duct. You have taken out the stones.
so,
What are the options to deal with the colorectomy itself? One is T-tube.
T tube, yes, sir. Sir, one is the placement of an internal stent.
Yes. And do a primary closure.
Primary closure, yes, sir.
And you can sometimes do a primary closure without even a stent. If you are confirmed that there is no distal obstruction, done a complete clearance,
So
there is a role for doing primary closure without even a stent. But a lot of people are putting stent and primary closure. And third is?
So the primary closure, internal stent and T-tube, placement of a T-tube, sir.
And then another option is?
So
Widely dilated duct, more than 2 centimeter duct, multiple stones or recurrent stones. Any other option? Suspicion of a distal obstruction.
If it's a very large bile duct, imagine it's 2.5 centimeters diameter, and the T tube lying in there will be just, it won't serve the purpose. There may be stones forming again.
So
we have to make a provision.
We discussed the T-tube discussion last day. While discussing T-tube, we have discussed this issue. You can do a bilioenteric bypass. You can do a bilioenteric bypass. Like?
yes.
What are the kinds of biliary enteric bypass? You can do a choledochore with what? You can join the bile duct to which part of the intestine?
The commonest surgery do is after stone extraction, usually colododuodenostomy.
Duodenum.
Or you can alternatively use a colodogojejunostomy.
Yes.
Okay, most of the time for a stone disease, we do a colodogoduodenostomy. So these are the options. It can be a primary closure with or without internal stent. It can be a T-tube closure of the colodogotomy and bilioenteric bypass in selected situations. You don't do a bypass routinely. A borderline dilated duct, you don't do a bypass. When bypass is mandatory if you have a suspicion of distal obstruction. So, Alok, what should be the minimum workup for a patient who is having a suspicion of CBD stone?
So preoperatively, sir, we should at least have an MRCP done, sir.
Yes, ultrasound and MRCP.
MRCP.
Don't say diagnostic ERCP. Diagnostic ERCP is not now a standard of care.
Yes,
if you have a documented MRCP being done and then reassess the point you said, if it is stone of 2 centimeter, it is unlikely to be successful by a ERCP. If you suspect there is a distal obstruction. Okay, so in that case, you have to stratify. The way you describe the paper, they have tried to stratify the factors which can be a factor for ERCP failure. So if you can identify that, you decide about the procedure.
During an ERCP stone extraction,
yes,
hello?
Sir. Yes, sir.
What do they do with the stones? How do they've taken the bile duct, they've taken the stones. What do they do with those stones? After taking it out of the
Ampulla.
sphincter of Oddi or the ampulla,
Yes, sir.
now what happens to those stones? Like in cholecystectomy, we take out the stones in a bag.
Yes,
Or-
sir.
So what happens in ERCP? Do they take out the stones or not take out the
You
stones?
must observe an ERC procedure.
Yes, sir.
You might have seen that the stone is just being left in the duodenum. And these are small stones which come to the ampulla, easily will pass out.
2 to 3 centimeter stones
They
usually
don't
pass out.
bother to take them out. They
You
just
cannot
leave
take a
them.
3 centimeter stone out in the ampulla
Yes,
water. You
yes.
cannot. Ampulla water size is 1 to 1.5 centimeter. Okay. So for this 2 centimeter stone, you need to add a lithotripsy. You cannot take a intact 2 centimeter stone out through the ampulla.
Yes.
Okay. So
Should we discuss this or move on to the?
yes, Dr. Sukuar Maiti is there. Dr. Sukuar Maiti.
Yes, that was a very nice and elaborate discussion. And Dr. Saha, you have rightly mentioned that the option in primary laparoscopic exploration of the CBD, and the advantage is the chance of performing the bypass, biliary enteric bypass. And you have rightly pointed out and that the choledochoduodenostomy, the students should remember that. Even in the many textbook, the choledochojejunostomy is given the first option. I think worldwide, Ramdeep may also accept that choledochoduodenostomy is the first option over the choledochojejunostomy. And the preoperative assessment is most important by ultrasonography and MRCP, because with that, most of the decision is taken whether we will opt for ERCP or the primary abdominal exploration by open surgery or by laparoscopic CBD exploration. Another point I like to mention that today the surgical training of the students, particularly the CBD exploration, is gradually being reduced, because most of the time CBD exploration by open surgery is not needed. So that part is to be also trained to the students, so that in future that option of open primary CBD exploration and the biliary enteric bypass should be trained properly. That is my comment I like to make.
Dr. Acharji, any comment? Dr. Acharji, any comment? Yeah.
Yes. I was just curious about any role for transduodenal sphincteroplasty in small stones in CBD.
That was the exact question I was planning to ask, but I thought it's an obsolete operation.
Actually, this is not. I've not seen this being done laparoscopically. This was a operation you do often you do, particularly for impacted stone.
Yeah. Yeah, as stone that is impacted in the lower part of the CBD.
Yeah.
At times, this transduodenal sphincteroplastic approach may help.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for the student who is answering the question, he should be able to mention all the operations, right from primary CBD closure to stent, primary stent, to T-tube, to choledochoduodenostomy, to choledochojejunostomy, to sometimes a Roux-en-Y hepaticojejunostomy,
Yes.
and transduodenal sphincteroplasty in case of impacted stones. And lastly, when someone is having recurrent intrahepatic hepatothelithiasis and is having repeated surgeries, then hepaticojejunostomy or choledochojejunostomy with an access loop. Probably that entire spectrum should be known to the patient.
And any role for hepatic resection for intrahepatic lithiasis?
I was avoiding that, but yes, if there is atrophy of one of the segments, then liver resection, and dare I say, rarely even liver transplantation when it is leading to secondary biliary cirrhosis.
Okay.
But I think let's that part be.
Dr. Ramdeep and Dr. Saha,
Yes.
what is your observation? If there is a CBD stone, almost in all the cases, the CBD is close to 1 centimeter or more than that. Almost it is never less than 7 millimeter. Is it correct? Is my comment is correct?
There will be some dilation, definitely. Once you have a CBD stone, there will be some dilation. 7 millimeter is a borderline dilatation. Beyond that, you say definitely dilated. But yes, it's very unlikely that CBD is normal 2 millimeter and where there is a stone inside. It's very not.
It is almost never less than 7 millimeter, and most of the time in difficult situation there is a option open for a biliary enteric bypass if there is a CBD stone. So that is the advantage.
But in 7 millimeter duct, we usually don't opt for a biliary bypass. 7 millimeter stone because duct diameter is important for doing a ease of anastomosis also.
Usually 7 millimeter stone with a CBD is not usually present. Most of the time the difficult CBD stones are usually associated with larger or wider CBD.
Yeah, that's true. Dr. Sumita Chatterjee, any comment? Sumita?
Hello?
Dr. Sumita, you like to make any comment?
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Acharjee.
A question to Ramdeep.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yes,
Dr. Ramdeep.
Yes.
Are you online? Yes. This cutoff line at 7 millimeter for ease of anastomosis is quite justified, at least for a surgeon with less experience in this anastomosis. But when you were doing a liver transplant, particularly a split liver transplant in children, the ducts are very small.
Yes.
And you don't really have much of problems. For that, you need to have special expertise also. What is your take on that? If we have a duct diameter, say a little less than maybe 2 centimeter or 1.5 centimeter, can I do it?
Thank you, Anandita. Yes, it is possible to do a ductal anastomosis even in 2 mm ducts, 3 mm ducts, which are done regularly in liver transplantation. However, I do agree. I do have this feeling that every problem should have the simplest possible solution, and a solution which can be done by more people, not by someone who has a limited expertise in a particular field. So for a person who has CBD stones, I would tend to do the minimum possible, and therefore even a straightforward CBD, I would tend to avoid biliary anastomosis and whenever possible. So yes, as Professor Shukuvar Maiti pointed out, there is a dilemma when you have a CBD stone which is leading to a borderline dilatation, and people who are comfortable may be doing politicojejunostomy more often. But we would tend to give the benefit of doubt and to the patient and give the simplest possible operation, which probably would be a T-tube or internal stent. Maybe I would prefer an internal stent in some cases, but the simplest operation which can be replicated by all would be my philosophy for all. Even if the surgeon has a certain expertise, he should also, I would say, think what is the easiest operation he can offer.
Yeah, actually more and more evidence is coming in favor of primary closure. Yeah, provided you have documented there is no distal obstruction, done a complete clearance.
Hello, Mahunda.
Yes.
Hello, Mahunda, Dr. Bosak.
Yes, Bosak, please.
I have got a question to Ramdeep and you. In the era of ERCP, now when we were medical students, we used to see a lot of CBD exploration. Now in the era of ERCP, we are doing ERCP, sphincterotomy, stone removal, and dilating the ampulla better with balloon dilatation. So in this new era, what are the indications to Ramdeep? What are the indications when we will do below enteric bypass? Because most of the time the ampulla beta is cut open, sphincter is cut and made patulous, and it ensures enough drainage of the biliary system. So in this era, because we don't like to do a bypass or a CBD exploration, if the ERCP and my physician colleague endoscopist colleague handles it. So what is the new indication when I should talk to my patient and say, look, I am going to do a bypass for you because we have to do it. You know what I mean? Well, ERCP has changed the management of biliary.
Okay, we'll answer your query. Yes.
Could I? Yeah, thank you for the question, Shomindra. As you pointed out, that we are doing less and less of surgery for CBD stones, and probably it should be that way, which means we are only operating only for the most complex CBD stones which have failed ERCP or which have already had ERCP multiple times. Very often, the cases that we get referred to are those cases where there are stones, there is already a stent placed in the bile duct, but stone clearance has not been possible. In those cases, with a dilated CBD, most probably we will end up doing a bypass as well. And we will not be dependent only on the sphincter of Oddi being already a sphincterotomy has been done. But in those cases, we will probably not leave it again for a future procedure. So we would probably, with a dilated CBD, with stones, in spite if failed ERCP, we would have to give them a robust surgical solution, which will not be dependent on future ERCPs. So I would err in favor of doing bypasses more often than not.
Yeah, and second thing is, you see, the trend now is more and more towards a primary lab CBD exploration rather than going for ERCP and then doing a lab chole, because the evidence is coming up. With the advanced laparoscopic surgery setup, people are getting more experience in suturing. Then people are now claiming that a lab CBD plus lab chole is a better option than ERCP followed by lab chole because of inherent complications of ERCP and the limitation of ERCP in some circumstances. So the essence is that we are not relying more and more towards ERCP. Surgeons are now trying to take this domain of surgery out of the endoscopist's hand and trying to claim that lab CBD exploration is a better option than a straight procedure of ERCP followed by lab chole.
Another question to Ramdeep.
This looks like my exam now.
No. It's sharing your experience.
No, not really. Since we are getting more and more, or rather, more and more cases of recurrent pyogenic cholangitis with intrahepatic stones are being diagnosed these days. Is there a role of this bilioenteric bypass? And if so, would you like to do it in a lower part of the CBD or upper part of the CBD, at the higher?
Thank you.
Has it any role?
So yes, these are the patients where we do get referred often. So we look at how many surgeries or how many attempts at stone extraction has happened in the past. If someone is having multiple stones but is not really having adequate CBD clearance attempts, then that should be the first attempt, number one. Number two is whether there is evidence of secondary biliary cirrhosis or whether there is evidence of atrophy hypertrophy complex. So depending on that, we will think about surgery. But yes, we would like to give the benefit of a biliary enteric bypass. So if the patient can be given a high biliary enteric bypass, high up on the bile duct, but provided a wide anastomosis can be created where we go very long on the left duct as well, then the first attempt should be to have a biliary enteric bypass rather than straight away jumping for a liver resection or for a liver transplantation cases.
Okay. Thank you.
Namunda, I have got a question to Ramdeep. In the era of COVID era, what is happening? A lot of patients are coming back who has got a stent inside for 2 years, 1.5 years, developing cholangitis. In the COVID period, people didn't come and follow up. So how to deal with this leftover stents in the CBD with cholangitis, and ERCP colleague is failing to extract because of dense fibrosis? And what are the operative tips in this type of case when you want to explore the CBD with a leftover stent and which is stuck to the CBD wall?
I try laparoscopically. If you can, you are through. Or last option is open. Yes. Okay, thank you. We pass on to the next topic, which will be presented by Nitesh Pradhan, who is a first year DNB PGT at MR Bangalore Hospital. Nitesh, you can start sharing your screen.
Good morning, respected teachers. My name is Dr. Nitesh Pradhan, first year at DNB PGT General Surgery, MR Bangalore Hospital. My topic for Journal Club today is transvaginal transumbilical IVD notes versus 3-trocar needle-scopic cholecystectomy in short-term result of randomized clinical trial. The article was published in Annals of Surgery. Primary author was Dick Rolf Bullion. Let's start with introduction. The collateral damage to the abdominal wall for intraperitoneal access accounts for the major part of operative trauma in abdominal surgery. Minimal invasive surgery was developed to minimize this damage and have gradually replaced traditional open surgeries due to lesser post-operative morbidity, post-operative pain, shorter hospitalization, and better aesthetics and post-op quality of life. Using instrument with a lower diameter of needle for needle-scopic cholecystectomy, which was evaluated in several trials, further reduced post-operative pain and improved aesthetics. Natural or revised transluminal endoscopic surgery is a surgical concept permitting scarless intra-abdominal operation through natural orifices. Nodes can be performed by a variety of approaches, including through the stomach, esophagus, bladder, and the rectum, but majority of the cases have been performed transvaginally. Nodes cholecystectomy has only been introduced into clinical trial as a hybrid procedure. Starting aim, the aim of the study is to compare the needle-scopic cholecystectomy, 3-trocar technique, and the umbilically assisted transvaginal cholecystectomy in a female patient requiring elective cholecystectomy in context of various parameters. Now, material and methods. Now, this study is randomized, prospective, single-center, and non-blinded clinical trial. The study was conducted at Department of Abdominal Vascular and Transplant Surgery of Kollen-Mahem Medical Center, Germany, in the time period between February 2010 to June 2012. Sample size of the study is 40 patients. Now, it has inclusion criteria of female sex, which are indication for elective cholecystectomy because of symptomatic cholecystolithiasis, and age between 18 to 80 years. Exclusion criteria are acute cholecystitis or the locally complicated diseases like gallbladder empyema or pancreatitis, liver cirrhosis, severe morbidities, and American Society of Anesthesiology class 4 or 5, BMI more than 40 kg per meter square, malignancy, chronic abuse and analgesic or alcohol, major abdominal surgery with high risk of intraperitoneal adhesions. Now, in this study, the enrolled patients were randomly assigned on 1:1 ratio to either TBC group or NC group. The randomization of the 40 patients were conducted without stratification using numbered, opaque, and seal envelope. Now, in this flow chart, the randomization of the patient is done. 40 patients were recruited and 40 patients were randomized. 20 in each groups. 20 allocated to TBC group, after which the gynecological examination was done, and 20 patients underwent surgery, out of which 19 analyzed for the primary outcome measure, and in NC group, 20 patients underwent surgery and 19 analyzed for the primary outcome measures. Now, pre-op and post-operative course. The proper history taking a physical examination and sonography and lab investigation were done. Gynecological examination done prior to the surgery, and no contraindication regarding gynecological was found. Pre-op antibiotic was given. Post-op analgesia in the recovery room given on demand. Post-operative pain medication was standardized and identical for both the patient. Involved on the day of surgery, IV paracetamol 1 gram twice a day was given, and day 1 it was tablet PCM 1 gram thrice a day, and on day 2 it is POD2 it was 500 milligram PCM TDS was given. Oral intake and mobilization was started on the day of the surgery. On POD2, patients were discharged, The first follow-up on the POD 10 and all patients were examined again. Surgical techniques in transvaginal cholecystectomy, two procure were used. 6 mm through umbilicus, 11 mm transvaginally. The dissection of gallbladder, cystic duct, and the cystic artery, and the clipping and transecting of them was done by umbilical 6 mm trocar while viewing through a transvaginal port. The gallbladder was transvaginally extricated through the 11 mm trocar incision in the posterior vault after changing the view to the transumbilical. Needlescopic cholecystectomy, 3 trocar used, 11 mm umbilical through umbilicus, and to 3.9 mm through epigastrium and the right costal margin. For clipping the cystic duct and cystic artery via the umbilical trocar, and for retrieving the gallbladder, a 3 mm optic, 3.3 mm optic was used by epigastric trocar. The gallbladder was extricated in the retrieval bag through the umbilical trocar incision. Now, outcome measures. The primary outcome of the study is the cumulative intensity of postoperative pain till POD2. And the secondary outcomes included intra and postoperative complication, procedural time, amount of analgesic used, pain intensity until POD10, duration of hospital stay, satisfaction with aesthetic results, and quality of life till on POD10. Now, the pain intensity measures by using NRS 11 scale, numeric rating scale, which has a 0 to 10 score, and quality of life quantified with the gastrointestinal quality of life index. The post-operative complication was assessed by the Cleveland-Indo classification. The statistical analysis. The study was analyzed by IBM SPSS Statics 19 for the data processing and statics of all variables. The parameters were analyzed by using various statistical tests like two-tailed t-test and Whitley-U test, Fisher exact, and the p-value was taken less than 0.05 was statistically significant. Now, in this table result, this table shows the baseline characteristic of all the patients with such as age, BMI, gallbladder stone, the preoperative laboratory value of leukocyte count, CRP, and there was no significant difference found in this characteristics. Now, the next table shows the procedural data and observation regarding the procedural data and the outcome, in which procedural time, frequency of analgesic in the recovery room, pre and post-operative difference in CRP and leukocyte count, post-operative hospital stay, post-operative complication has shown no significant differences. Now come in the post-operative complication. Now in each group, the two patients shows post-operative complication. In case of NC group, 2 patients developed wound infection in the umbilical trocar site. One of which is managed by the antibiotic treatment, and one is managed by opening and the regular flushing of the wound. In TBC group, 2 patients developed complication, post-operative complication of biliary pancreatitis, and were managed by ERCP followed by conservative treatment, and both the patients were discharged. Now, the post-operative complication were assessed by Cleveland-Indo classification. In TBC group, the 2 post-operative complication lands into grade 3, which requiring the surgical endoscopy or radiological intervention. That is ERCP. Now, this patient requires ERCP followed by conservative management. And in the LC group, one lands to grade 2, which was treated by antibiotic therapy, and one lands into grade 3, which requires opening and regular refluxing. Now, the primary outcome measures was cumulative pain from the day of surgery to day 2. Shows shows less intensity of pain in case of TBC group than NC group. And the cumulative and the secondary outcomes such as cumulative pain from the day of surgery to day 10 to day 10 are less in TBC group compared to NC group. And the frequency and the frequency of analgesic are less in TBC group, and the requirement of analgesic paracetamol less required in TBC group compared to NC. So the acquired analgesic, that pyramide, required in TBC group more in TBC group because of the two post-operative complication developed in TBC group. This table, this diagrams of box plot shows primary outcome measures in which the intensity of pain was plotted till POD2, morning of the POD2, and the average pain score was taken 4, and the dark box is of TBC group, and the lighter one is NC group. Now, the median of TBC group came 2 and 6, and this shows less intensity of pain in TBC group compared to NC group. Now, in this table, the instrument handling was found difficult in case of TBC group in both the surgeons, and gallbladder extraction was found easier in TBC group compared to NC group. Now, come to discussion. This trial was designed to compare the intensity of post-operative pain after 2 different techniques of cholecystectomy in patients with symptomatic cholecystolithiasis. The results are significantly reduced post-operative pain in the first 2 days and in the first 10 days after the surgery by TBC compared to NC. Need of peripheral analgesic was significantly less in the TBC group. Now, TBC patients were significantly more satisfied with the aesthetic results and had significantly better gastrointestinal quality life index. Now, other studies also shows found advantage over the TBC for TBC as compared with LC group. Like in Jorning et al., they are found advantage for TBC as compared with LC group. Hansel et al. Found nausea or vomiting pain, use of analgesic in hospital significantly reduced. Klein et al. Found significantly less post-operative pain and shorter hospital stay for 15 TBC patients than for 20 LC patients and 3 non-randomized study. Limitation of a study. For evaluation of the theoretically lower rate of port site hernia after TBC, the sample size of the study is too small, as well as the follow-up for the several years is required. In this study, there are 2 cases of post-operative biliary pancreatitis in the TBC group. Whether this is a technique-specific complication or coincidence in a study cannot be determined because of lack of significance. Conclusion: although the comparable in terms of safety, the TBC caused less pain despite less use of analgesic, increased satisfaction with the aesthetic result, and improved post-operative quality of life in the short term. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Ramdeep.
Thank you. Nice presentation once again. I have never reached the gallbladder through the vagina, so I have no experience on this. So my questions will be related to the paper firstly. So firstly, again, general question. What do you understand by the impact factor of a journal?
Sir, impact factor is, sir, in case of TBC, there's
the journal impact factor, not specific. You'll find impact factor journal being mentioned everywhere.
What is it? So how do we know whether a journal is more respectable, more valued, more trustworthy? How do you assess that?
Sir,
Are you aware? Not sure.
No, sir.
So it is the impact factor of the journal which tells you how good a journal is, and impact factor is the calculation. And they look at the total number of citable articles published by all journals in a 2-year period, and number of times the journals articles from that journal has been published, and that tells you the impact factor. So the higher the impact factor, the better it is. So that's one. Second question is, when you
Impact of the
compare,
author impact. This was a question in this year PG exam. Impact from the author.
Sir?
You know about the author impact factor of the author.
so there's a calculation for the journal, there's an author for the
Yes.
author as well. There's a separate calculation for that, which formula I am not aware.
So that is the number of articles that author has published and number of citations for each of this article. So more the number of citations of this article, the more is the impact factor. So that is called as H index.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Then
Another thing I wanted to ask was, when you're comparing the data between two groups of study groups, like in your case, there were two groups, one is through notes and another needlescopy. When you look at the data, there is, yes, come back to the previous slide. Yes, this one. There's a P you have written at the side. P. What is P?
Sir, sir, it is a it tells about the significance between comparison of two groups. Which was
So what is your cutoff P value for which you say that the difference is significant?
So the cutoff value is less than 0.5.
0.05.
0.05.
Yes, sir.
0.05.
0.05.
So what you're saying is that a cutoff less than 0.05 is regarded statistically significant.
Yes.
Now, explain that to me in English. What do you mean by that? What does 0.05 actually mean? So here there are two groups. And if this p-value was less than 0.05 for any of them, you would have said it is statistically significant. Why? What is 0.05 here? What does it mean?
Don't know, sir.
So you must be aware of this. So this is basically that if there is a 5% chance that the difference is because of sheer chance. 95% it is because it's supposed to be that way. But if it were beyond that, it were in that 5%, then it is regarded as the difference is because of some reason. The difference is not because of sheer chance. It's because of some sheer reason. Okay. And you should also be aware of this Clavion-Dindo classification, which you have just put, and there's the grade, if you can see below.
Yes, sir.
So please be aware of that grade also. Nowadays, more and more the complications are graded in these terms. When you look at papers, you just tend to look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, but please be aware about the what those individual grading supposed to mean. Mark on the questions, I think.
Yeah, regarding this paper, you see, I was wondering that they have for TVC, they are doing one umbilical port and the viewing port is a transvaginal port. So it is very difficult to descend the callous triangle area without a retraction. If you have one port, it is not possible to have a good retraction. So I don't think this is being replicable by other authors. Have you come across the same? Because in TVC, what they do is there are multiple prongs coming up from the endoscope, which has a facility for retraction and dissection. I find this paper having a umbilical port, which is a sole port for dissection and everything. And you said that TVC port was for only viewing. Have you find any other cross reference that they are doing with the same port?
Sir, any other cross reference? Sir, one cross reference was there, Zorning et al. In 2007. They published.
Same, one umbilical port and
umbilical umbilical port versus laparoscopic cholecystectomy.
That is nodes through the umbilicus, where you can put 3 or 4 ports, whatever you like to do. Okay. So what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
saying is, if you are trying to descend the callus triangle area without retraction, sometimes it will be very difficult, because you
Yes,
need
sir.
to retract the fundus or the herpes pouch area for dissection. But I think this will be difficult to replicate this study. Needlescopy is also compared with the standard laparoscopic cholecystectomy, where they have shown that if you make an incision much smaller, the pain, everything is less. Is not that the chance of infection is higher with needlescopy. That is not a significant infection rate being higher in needlescopic group. So what is the other cross reference says? Because transvaginal cholecystectomy is not a very popular technique. Although it is described about almost more than 10 years now, it has not gained popularity because of number one, expertise, the equipments, and the technical difficulty in performing the procedure. It is otherwise challenging that you don't have a scar, you don't have no scar in the abdomen. You can do whole procedure with the transvaginal route. But again, it is a challenging procedure in respect of everything, equipments and expertise, and it has not gained that popularity. Dr. Acharji, Dr. Maiti, any comment about this?
I have no experience regarding transvaginal cholecystectomy.
We don't have.
But one thing is that nothing is mentioned about the rate of infection in the pelvic cellulitis or pelvic inflammatory signs in the postoperative setting. Another is, I want to know what is actually done for the closure of the port which is passed through the vagina. Any idea how?
Simple closure, just vaginal closure with a vicryl. That is described.
Okay.
You just put a trocar and you just close the vaginal wall with using a interrupted vicryl suture.
We had done a few cases of single port umbilical. Is it now still popular? Is it being done at all, or has it fallen?
It is fallen to disfavor, because again the technical difficulty of approaching the callus triangle area. Some people use curved instruments, some use straight instruments, but it has not gained popularity. Most of the people are now very comfortable in doing the standard laparoscopy, and in easier cases you can have smaller instruments, like the fundal retraction port. If the gallbladder is thin walled, you can just put a needle through the anti-axillary port and just retract. You can use a 3 mm instruments. These are coming up, but a single port laparoscopy is not having a much popularity nowadays. Some people are still doing, but the standard of care is still now the standard 3 or 4 port laparoscopy.
Professor Saha, another comment I like to make regarding the aesthetic or the cosmetic reason, the more and more we should take care of the ports other than the umbilical port. Umbilical port scar is never a problem, I think. Regarding the epigastric or the lateral port, if we pass more and more towards the narrower port, I think the problem of aesthesis will be reduced, and the problem during operation or the comfort of operation, as you have mentioned, particularly retraction and other thing, dissection, will be as it is with the larger port. If the needle ports are used in the epigastric and the flanks of the abdomen, I think the cosmesis will never be a problem, rather than opting for the transvaginal.
Actually, we have tried with these micro instruments, but the problem in our patient population is these are very much applicable if you have a gallbladder with thin wall. But if you have a very bad gallbladder with a very thick wall, it is very difficult to manipulate with 3 mm instruments. It will just break and you cannot carry on the procedure. So these are the situations where you need endoscopy or 3 mm instruments. Pediatric population is good enough, but for adult patients where you have a gallbladder which is having thin wall, not much of adhesions, you can carry on. But a very thick wall gallbladder, sometimes you cannot catch it with the standard 5 mm tooth transfer. So these are not applicable in difficult situations. These are applicable in straightforward and gallbladder not having a past history of cholecystitis. These are the situation you can go on with this needlescopy. So one has to customize the procedure depending on the particular patient clinical scenario. Dr. Acharji, any comment?
Professor Saha,
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you give an idea in Kolkata till now what is the possibility of how many operations through the transvaginal route has been done? Any just gross idea?
No, I don't think many people in Calcutta has done transvaginal cholecystectomy. I have not heard of. At least nobody has shared their experience of doing a transvaginal cholecystectomy in Calcutta.
And is the chance of intestinal injury is more with transvaginal route?
That is not being documented that way. You see, this series also they have done 20 cases. There is no because that is one of the contraindication. If you have a gross adhesion in the pelvis, this is particular contraindication for going the transvaginal route. You cannot go. You cannot dissect this dense adhesions in the pelvis or the internal adhesion. That is one of the contraindication for doing a transvaginal approach.
And if preoperatively the patient, many of the female patients have the pelvic inflammatory disease that may be in the milder form
You
or
cannot go.
moderate form.
You cannot.
So in all those cases, it should be abandoned.
Yes,
Any
yes,
sort of pelvic inflammation.
yes. Previous pelvic surgery again is a contraindication. Ramdeep, any last minute comment?
No, thank you. Really no experience in notes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was a nice presentation, and it was nice for other. I did not know that everyone joined in, so it was nice. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So from Tuesday, we'll pass on to our June program. Join us because another 15 days we'll have a same so-called lockdown. So we'll continue the online for next 15 days. Okay. Thank you, Ramdeep. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.